Grayson Grundhoefer, Craig Smoke up in the premium section, and also a part of all of what we do every week. They record on Tuesdays and it's up. And, of course, he's the recruiting analyst for SicEm365.com. Normally Fridays, but today, because tomorrow Baylor starts their fall workouts, and Grayson on with us today. He'll be busy tomorrow. Grayson, again, these camps open. We go, hey, how does so-and-so look? What do you think? Let's start with just Dave Aranda. What does he need to see? What are a couple of things he has to check off between now and when they open up their season?
Yeah, I think the good thing for Dave Aranda is that he feels probably really good about what they have in the trenches. On the offensive line and defensive line, I think, there's just a fundamental belief in physicality, and I think they're going to be able to have that from day one, at least up front. And I think that's great. And I think Aranda's probably really, really happy about that. But I think if you kind of look at the other positions, there's a lot of positions that have guys who just aren't quite proven yet, or they're really young, or the mixture of the two. So I really think fall camp for Dave Aranda is going to be about, kind of looking at these young guys and trying to figure out, okay, where does this guy fit in best? What can we do with this guy? What is he good at? What is he not good at? And I think that will allow him to probably, get a better picture for what this team is going to be like, and also be able to put, those young guys in situations to succeed instead of situations to fail. And I think that's going to be really, really important because you look at various positions, whether it's wide receiver or safety or even cornerback, there's a lot of young guys. And so I think it's going to be important that he kind of is able to narrow it down a little bit, find the guys that he can trust, and then put them in positions to succeed.
How healthy do you think the wide receiver core will be as it starts camp? 100%, or are there still some guys that might be working back from stuff?
I mean, very healthy from what I can tell. I think Hal Presley was dealing with the injury that he sustained during spring ball, and he's back now. So I don't think there's going to be much, caution with him. Gavin Holmes has had a lot of injuries in his career, but he was fine during spring ball as well. Jalen Ellis, Javon Gibson both dealt with hamstring injuries during spring, so they really need to just, get through those injuries, and I think they are past those. And they need both those guys to be 100% because in order for you to get the best out of these young guys, they really need to be pushed. And I think all of these guys need to be pushed, and all these guys need to get reps on the field. And I think if, Hal had sustained that injury during fall camp, it would have been a lot harder for him to crack the starting lineup. But because, he's back now he's got an opportunity to kind of make up some ground. And I think that's going to be an area to really focus on is, if you pick up a lingering injury during fall camp, a lot of times it's hard to get back to 100% before the season starts, and it's hard to really show what you can do. So hopefully they remain healthy. But for now, I think this can be a pretty healthy group going into the fall.
Last year, Grayson, even though there was a quarterback competition, it ultimately did feel like Gary Bohannon's team, once things got kind of underway and he was named the starter. Does this feel like Blake Shapen's team to you already?
Yeah, in a different way, I think, Craig. I think that what we saw from Gary was more of this, he's a true leader on this team. He's been here forever. He's been here through, some tough seasons, but he's kind of rallied to this point. He finally got his chance, and everyone was so excited for him. Everyone was, just happy because he's such a good guy, a guy that works, harder than anyone else. And I think with Chapin, it's a little bit different because, Chapin hasn't been at Baylor for, an insane amount of time. He hasn't, waited forever to get his chance. But the part where I think everyone has bought in is the talent and kind of what he can bring to the table on the football field. And I think when you have a guy like that, there's this automatic confidence boost, with the entire team. So I think that's the area where I think it's become his team is that everyone has seen him do it on the field. And Dave Miranda mentioned this. He's becoming a better leader. So I'm not saying he's not a good leader, but I think because he's still a little bit younger, I don't think he's gotten to the point where it's like every guy knows that this is 100% Blake Shapen's team. He's the top leader on the totem pole. Whereas I thought last year, there were some points where I think you could say that Gary might have been, one of, if not the top leader on the team. I'm not sure that Chapin's there yet, but his play on the field and what he brings to this team with his arm talent is definitely something that everyone on the team recognizes, and I think they'll rally behind that.
You know, the Gary Bohannon was a leader who had it in his neck. And when you compare what he had, his was, I'll run over you. I'll lead you by, I'll run over the next guy to pick up a first down. Not that Blake can't run around somebody or give somebody a juke, but his is in a different way, isn't it, Grayson? It's more of just the fact that he has all of the tools, so to speak, in his repertoire.
Yeah, and I think that talent that Blake has, it is very different than the talent that Gary has. So I think Blake is more like, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to throw for 500 yards and there's nothing you can do about it. You know what I mean? It's more that swagger that, like, I'm going to make a play in the most, big moments. I'm going to make the throw that I need to make, and there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas with Gary, it was more like, I'm just going to wear you down. You know what I mean? I'm going to grind out drives. I'm going to complete the tough passes. I'm going to get first down after first down. And Chapin is just a little bit different in that it's more, I'm going to stand in the pocket and I'm going to throw it 50 yards downfield, and I believe that I can make any throw on the field. And I think that's big as well.
There's a story that, Paul, you and I heard, that when Jeff Grimes was at Brigham Young, Zach Wilson one time in a game was told not to make a certain throw. And it was between a corner and a safety, like a hole.
A hole in the cover two.
In the cover two. And just for kicks, and because he had the arm to do it, he made that throw early in the game, came to the sideline, and what was the reaction?
Is it okay to get that off my chest? You got it. You did it.
Yeah. Because he wanted to prove that he could do it, even though he knew he probably shouldn't. And Chapin maybe has that kind of thing in him. So are we going to see a guy that can make that kind of throw, or try to sometimes throw a ball through a BB through a keyhole and put up with a couple of turnovers extra that we didn't see too much, although Bohannon threw the deadly turnover against TCU?
Yeah, I think that Gary did have some turnover problems that were masked a little bit by the fact that they were able to turn around and run the ball a ton. But I felt like in kind of their a lot of their bigger games, he did have some turnover issues, and he ran into some problems with that. And that's okay. That happens at times. But I think for Blake, it's going to be a little bit different, because I think he's going to throw the ball more, which is naturally going to lead to probably more turnovers than Gary had. Gary didn't throw the ball a ton. So, those numbers are kind of restricted a little bit, both in the touchdown department, but also in the turnover department. And so I think for Blake, he will turn it over more, but I think you're going to see more explosive plays. You're going to see far more yards, passing yards from this team. You're going to see far more passing touchdowns from this team as well. And you might have to put up with, maybe 3 or 4 more interceptions than what Gary had a year ago. But I think it's more of a volume thing than it is really, just he's being super irresponsible with the ball. But I will say, there were times last year where Blake did try to make too many tough throws, and they did almost lead to turnovers, like in the Texas Tech game and in the Kansas State game. So he does need to get that corrected. But again, he was a redshirt freshman last year. So, he still had some, a little bit of ways development-wise to go.
Well, and Grayson, look, the offense is going to look, I wouldn't say completely different, but I would say, substantially different than it would because they're going to do different things than they will. Like the numbers might balance out in a different way. They're probably going to have more passing yards and less rushing yards, but that doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden a worse rushing team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think as a whole, this offense is going to be far better. I think they're going to score more points. I think they're going to be far more explosive, which is an area that you want in any offense in college football. And it really hurt this team a year ago was the fact that they just did not hit on a ton of explosive plays. I think they're going to get back to that and be able to, create 50-yard touchdowns instead of just, trying to churn out long drives, which is really tough. It is really tough in college football to just get, 10 yards at a time. At times that's good, but then other times it just becomes very difficult to consistently do that. You have to have some explosive plays. So I think you'll see that from Chapin, and you're exactly right. They might be just as good on the ground, but I don't think anyone on this team is going to have 1,600 rushing yards like Abram Smith did. I just think it's going to be a little bit different the way it's made, but overall I think this offense is going to be quite a bit better than it was a year ago.
Grayson, what do you think Dallas Baker's provided for the wide receivers group thus far?
Yeah, I think that he's created a level of excitement, and I think that's a big deal for a young group. I think he's ended up being a perfect hire, and everyone that I've kind of talked to or people that have talked about Dallas Baker, it's just that, he's really relating to the players extremely well and in a way that makes them excited. You know what I mean? And I think that's key when you're dealing with the fact that you have, 5 freshmen and 4 sophomores. You're really trying to balance things out between being a great technical coach while also being able to be like, come here, like you made a mistake. Like, let's talk it through. It's going to be all right. Let's get back. Let's rerun it. Right. And, a lot of times for young guys, it's hard to forget bad plays, but the best players forget about them quickly and make it up with the next play. And I think Dallas Baker's done a great job with that. And I think the young guys are going to respond really well to his coaching. And in my opinion, that group is only going to get better as the season goes on. Lots of young guys, but a lot of talent there and a lot of guys who are ready to be developed and ready to grow in their game.
I don't know how much time has been spent on wondering about Craig Williams and his play time. And obviously it appears as if he's ready to have a breakout year. And you'd love to see what he did against Iowa State a couple of years ago, and that's the norm. I know Travis Roeder is just gushing over what he thinks Squirrel might do. And I know we all know what he can do in a lot of ways if healthy. But how many touches a game does he get? How do you allow him to possibly be more of an in-between-the-tackles guy with the wide zone, but also monitor his touches?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know Travis has talked about there's no way he's not going to get 20 touches a game. And for me, I just don't know that would be wise. I mean, Squirrel is listed at 169 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I love Squirrel. What he brings to the table is something that they don't have at the running back position. He's very unique, and he runs the ball like a power back, even though he's so shifty and so quick and fast as well. So they're going to need to give him carries, but I think they are going to restrict him a little bit. And in my opinion, that's fine because I think Cade McWilliams is fantastic. I think he's going to be very, very good. I don't think he's getting enough recognition, and I don't think people are talking about him quite enough because what I saw in the spring game was a guy that was consistently dragging players 3 yards after contact, and that is extremely important in this offense. We saw Abram Smith get, who knows, it feels like hundreds of first downs when he was hit 3 yards short of the first down marker and still found a way to get a first down. And I think Tay can bring that to the table. So I think both of them are going to get a significant amount of carries, but I don't see Craig getting more than maybe, I would say probably like 12, 13 carries a game. He might get a couple catches out of that, so maybe 15 touches. And then I think Cade McWilliams will probably get around 10, 12 touches, and then maybe someone else will be able to mix in a little bit in there as well. But in the games that I think they're, beating teams pretty bad, I don't think Squirrel will get as many touches as he will in those games when they really, really need him to get the football. And overall, this is his year to break out. They're going to give him every opportunity to do that. But I hope they're also pretty mindful about the fact that, they need him later in the year more than they do, game 1 against Albany.
Who's going to push the pile and get a first down in a big moment? Who's the first running back that's going to do that, who can do that during the camp in August, and then eventually when the games matter, when they start in September? That number you mentioned, 12 or 13, 12 is kind of the number that rings a bell, I think, when I asked that question myself among those who might know. So good stuff with that. Grayson, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. See you tomorrow at practice.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Grayson Grundhoefer, SicEm365 Recruiting Analyst, and who's probably maybe